The dense forest of Willow Creek whispered secrets in the rustle of its leaves, and for as long as I could remember, my family's cabin had been my sanctuary. Tucked away at the edge of the exclusive Willow Creek Estates, a gated community of sleek modern homes and manicured lawns, the cabin was a rustic anomaly, a weathered wooden structure my great-grandfather built decades before the developers arrived. It wasn't much, but was mine, inherited through generations, a quiet retreat where I could escape the city's hum and lose myself in the rhythm of the woods. I'm Ellie Harper, a freelance graphic designer with a penchant for solitude and a stubborn streak that's got me into trouble more than once. Last spring, I decided it was time to fix up the cabin. The roof was leaking, the porch sagged, and the memories of my childhood summers were fading under layers of dust. I loaded my truck with supplies, lumber, paint, and enough coffee to fuel a week of renovations, and headed out to Willow Creek, expecting a peaceful retreat. What I didn't expect was a chain-link barricade across a narrow dirt road leading to my property, a shiny new padlock glinting in the sun, and a sign that read, Willow Creek Estates HOA, authorized access only. I parked my truck and stared at the barricade, dumbfounded. This was my road. Well, not exactly mine, but it was the only way to the cabin, a winding path that cut through the forest and crossed a sturdy wooden bridge over Willow Creek itself. The bridge was ancient, built by my great-grandfather alongside the cabin, its weather beam still holding strong despite years of neglect. I'd never had an issue accessing it before. Sure, the HOA had always been prickly about outsiders using their roads, but I wasn't an outsider. My family had been here long, before their gated utopia existed. I fished my phone from my pocket and dialed the number on the HOA sign. After a few rings, a curt voice answered. Willow Creek Estates Homeowners Association, Margaret speaking. Hi, Margaret. I said, try to keep my tone civil. I'm Ellie Harper. I own the cabin just past the bridge. There's a barricade blocking my access. Can you tell me what's going on? There was a pause, then a sharp intake of breath. Ms. Harper, the HOA has restricted access to non-residents due to recent trespassing incidents. That road is private property, maintained by the HOA. If you'd like to discuss this further, you'll need to attend our next board meeting. Private property? I laughed, incredulous. I've been using that road for years. My family's cabin predates your entire neighborhood. And the bridge? My great-grandfather built it. I just need to get to my property. Margaret's voice turned icy. The bridge may be old, but the road is ours. You'll need to provide proof of easement rights. Until then, the barricade stays. I hung up, my blood boiling. Proof of easement rights? I wasn't a lawyer, but I knew my family had never needed permission to use that road. The cabin was landlocked otherwise, surrounded by dense forest and the creek's steep banks. The bridge was the only way in. I wasn't about to let some overzealous HOA gatekeep my family's legacy. That evening, I drove to the local library and dug through public records, fueled by determination and a thermos of coffee. What I found was a gold mine, a dusty surveyor's map from 1947, tucked away in a forgotten file. It showed my family's property, the cabin, and the bridge, labeled Harper Bridge, along with a handwritten note confirming that the bridge and its access road were deeded to my great-grandfather, Samuel Harper. The HOA's private road? It was just a paved extension of the original path, and according to the deed, my family owned the bridge outright. Not only that, but the map suggested the bridge was the only access point to the entire Willow Creek Estates. The developers had built their fancy neighborhood around it, assuming they could claim the road as their own. Armed with this revelation, I decided to confront the HOA at their next meeting. The Willow Creek Estates clubhouse was a sterile, glass-walled building that smelled of lemon cleaner and self-importance. Inside, a dozen residents sat around a polished table, led by Margaret Caldwell, a woman with a severe bob and a penchant for gavel banging. I recognized a few faces, neighbors who once waved politely when I'd driven past, but now eyed me like I was an intruder. Thank you for attending, Ms. Harper, Margaret said, her smile as warm as a winter breeze. You're here to discuss the access issue? I held up the surveyor's map and a copy of the deed. This is my family's property, including Harper Bridge. It's the only way to my cabin. And according to these documents, it's also the only legal access to your neighborhood. You've blocked my road, and I'd like to know why." The room erupted in murmurs. A man in a polo shirt, Greg, according to his nameplate, leaned forward. "That's absurd. The HOA owns and maintains all roads in Willow Creek Estates. We've invested thousands in paving and security. You can't just claim ownership of our infrastructure." "I'm not claiming your roads," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I'm claiming my bridge. And if you check the records, you'll see it's the only way into your neighborhood. No bridge, no access for any of us." Margaret's eyes narrowed. "This is highly irregular. We'll need our lawyer to review these documents." "Review all you want," I said, sliding copies across the table. "But that barricade needs to come down. Today." The meeting descended into chaos. Some residents argued I was bluffing. Others whispered about property values. And one woman in the back muttered about outsiders ruining the community. Margaret banged her gavel until the room quieted. "We'll take this under advisement," she said. "In the meantime, the barricade remains." I left the clubhouse fuming, but determined. If the HOA wanted a fight, I'd give them one. Over the next few days, I consulted a lawyer friend, Tara, who confirmed the deed's legitimacy. "Ellie, you've got them cornered," she said, grinning over her coffee. "That bridge is your trump card. They can't legally block your access, and if they rely on it for their own, they're in deep trouble." But the HOA wasn't backing down. The next morning, I found a cease and desist letter taped to my truck, demanding I stop trespassing on their road. I tore it up and drove to the barricade, where a security guard now stood watch. He was young, barely out of high school, and looked uncomfortable when I showed him the deed. "I just follow orders, ma'am," he mumbled. "Then tell Margaret her orders are about to cost her neighborhood its only way in," I said, half bluffing. I wasn't sure what I'd do with the bridge. Tear it down? Block it off? But the idea of turning the tables felt good. Word spread fast. By the next day, my phone was buzzing with messages from Willow Creek residents. Some were apologetic, others furious, and a few offered to negotiate. One, a retired engineer named Carl, invited me to his house, a sleek modern home with a view of the creek. Over tea, he admitted the HOA had overreached. "Margaret's been pushing the security agenda for years," he said. "But no one realized your family owned the bridge. If you block it, we're all landlocked." "I don't want to block it," I said. "I just want access to my cabin." Carl nodded. "Give me a day. I'll talk to the others." That night, I sat on the cabin's creaky porch, staring at the stars through the trees. The creek's gentle rush echoed below, and I wondered what my great-grandfather would think of this mess. He'd built the bridge to connect people, not divide them. But as I sipped my coffee, a new thought hit me. The deed mentioned a second access point, an old logging trail on the far side of my property. It was overgrown, barely passable, but if I could clear it, I wouldn't need the bridge or the HOA's permission. The next morning, I hiked out to investigate, machete in hand. The trail was a tangle of brambles and fallen trees, but it led to a county road a mile away. It was doable. I spent the day hacking through underbrush, my mind racing. If I restored the trail, I could bypass the HOA entirely. But what about the bridge? If I owned it, did I have a responsibility to maintain it for the neighborhood? Or could I use it as leverage to force the HOA to back off? As I worked, my phone pinged with a text from Carl. "HOA wants to meet tomorrow. They're rattled. You've got their attention." I grinned, wiping sweat from my brow. This was far from over. I woke to the sound of birdsong filtering through the cabin's cracked windows, the early morning light casting long shadows across the warped wooden floor. My muscles ached from yesterday's battle with the logging trail, but the thought of that overgrown path fueled a spark of hope. If I could clear it, I'd have my own way in and out, free from the HOA's grip. But the bridge, Harper Bridge, loomed large in my mind. Owning it gave me leverage, a wild card I wasn't sure how to play. As I brewed coffee on the cabin's ancient stove, my phone buzzed with another text from Carl. Meeting at 10 a.m. Clubhouse. Bring the deed. Some residents want to talk, not just Margaret. I grinned, sipping the bitter brew. The HOA was rattled, and Carl's message hinted at cracks in their united front. Maybe not everyone was on board with Margaret's power trip, but I wasn't naive. Going into that meeting would be like walking into a lion's den. I needed a plan, and I needed to know more about that logging trail before I faced them. After breakfast, I grabbed my machete and a pair of work gloves and headed back to the trail. The air was crisp, heavy with the scent of pine and damp earth. The trail was a mess, overgrown with brambles, fallen logs, and vines that seemed to tangle tighter the deeper I went. But as I hacked through, I noticed something odd. Faint tire tracks, barely visible under the undergrowth. They weren't recent, but they were there, pressed into the dirt like a ghost of the past. My great-grandfather's deed had mentioned this trail as a secondary access, but who else had used it? And when? I followed the tracks until they widened into a small clearing, where the remnants of an old stone wall peeked through the moss. Beyond it, the trail continued toward the county road, but something about the wall stopped me. It was crumbling, overgrown, but deliberate, like it had once marked a boundary. I brushed away dirt and found a weathered carving, SH 1948. Samuel Harper, my great-grandfather. Had he built this too? The discovery sent a shiver down my spine. There was more to this land than I'd realized, and I was starting to suspect the HOA's barricade wasn't just about trespassing. My phone buzzed, pulling me back to the present. It was Tara, my lawyer friend. "Ellie, I dug deeper into county records," she said, her voice crackling with excitement. "Your great-grandfather didn't just own the bridge. There's a clause in the original land grant that suggests your family's property includes a right-of-way through what's now Willow Creek Estates. The developers might have built over it without proper authorization. If that's true, you could have a claim to more than just the bridge." "More than the bridge?" I asked, leaning against a tree. "Like what?" "Like the land the road itself is on," Tara said. "I'm still piecing together. But if the HOA's road is built on your family's right-of-way, they've got no legal standing to block you. I'll keep digging, but you need to be careful. If Margaret gets wind of this, she'll lawyer up fast." I thanked Tara and pocketed my phone, my mind racing. A right-of-way, that could change everything. But I needed hard proof, and I needed to get to that meeting. I hiked back to the cabin, showered off the dirt, and grabbed the deed and surveyor's map. As I drove toward the clubhouse, I rehearsed my approach. Stay calm, stick to the facts, and don't let Margaret's icy stare rattle me. The clubhouse was packed this time, standing room only. Margaret sat at the head of the table, her gavel poised like a weapon, but the atmosphere felt different. Residents whispered to each other, and a few nodded at me as I walked in. Carl was there, sitting near a woman with kind eyes and a notepad. Lydia, he'd told me, a retired teacher who'd lived in Willow Creek since its first homes were built. Margaret opened the meeting with her usual flair, but her voice was tighter than before. "Ms. Harper, you've made serious claims about the bridge. Our legal team is reviewing your documents, but we're here to discuss a resolution. What exactly do you want?" I took a deep breath and set the deed on the table. I want the barricade removed so I can access my cabin. My Neanderthal, my family's owned Harper Bridge since 1947, and it's the only way to my property. But let's be clear, it's also the only way into your neighborhood. If you keep blocking me, we're all stuck. The room buzzed. Greg, the polo shirt guy, scoffed. "You're threatening to cut off our access? That's extortion." "It's not a threat," I said, holding his gaze. "It's a fact. The bridge is mine, and I have every right to control access to it, just like you're trying to control access to my cabin." Lydia raised a hand, her voice calm but firm. "Margaret, maybe we should hear Ellie out. If her family built the bridge, we can't just ignore that. We all use it every day." Margaret's lips thinned, but before she could respond, Carl stood. "I've lived here 10 years, and I've seen how this HOA operates. We spent thousands on that road, but if Ellie's right, and I think she is, we don't own it. We need to negotiate, not escalate." The room split into factions. Some residents nodded in agreement. Others grumbled about property values. And a few glared at me like I was a villain. Margaret banged her gavel. "Enough! Ms. Harper, We'll remove the barricade temporarily while our lawyers review your claims. But if you're wrong, there will be consequences. I nodded, keeping my expression neutral. Fair enough, but I'm not wrong. As the meeting adjourned, Lydia approached me. Ellie, I knew your great-grandfather, she said quietly. He was a good man, always talking about that bridge like it was his legacy. There's something else you should know. A few years back, when the developers were expanding the neighborhood, they tried to buy out your family's land. Your grandmother refused. I think that's why Margaret's so set on controlling the road. She's worried you'll dig up old deals that could hurt the HOA. My pulse quickened. What kind of deals? Lydia glanced around, lowering her voice. I don't know the details, but there's a file in the HOA's records, old contracts, maybe. You might want to look into it. I thanked her and left the clubhouse, my head spinning. The barricade was coming down, at least for now, but this was bigger than a bridge. What had the developers been hiding? And what was in those HOA files? As I drove back to the cabin, I noticed a black SUV parked near the bridge, its driver watching me. It peeled away before I could get a good look, but it left an uneasy feeling in my gut. Back at the cabin, I pulled out the surveyor's map and studied it again. The logging trail, the right-of-way, the mysterious stone wall. Pieces of a puzzle I was only beginning to understand. I texted Tara. Can you check for any old developer contracts tied to Willow Creek Estates? Something's off. As night fell, I sat on the porch, listening to the creek's steady flow. The stars were bright, but the forest felt alive with secrets. I had the deed, the map, and a growing list of allies, but the HOA wasn't done fighting. And neither was I. The morning sun filtered through the pines, casting dappled light across the cabin's porch as I sipped my coffee, the bitter taste grounding me against a whirlwind of questions swirling in my mind. The logging trail, the stone wall with my great-grandfather's initials, the cryptic hint from Lydia about old developer contracts. It was all starting to feel like a puzzle with missing pieces. And that black SUV? Its brief appearance by the bridge yesterday nagged at me, a loose thread in an already tangled mess. I wasn't sure who was watching me, but I was determined to find out what the HOA was hiding. I pulled on my boots and grabbed my backpack, stuffing it with a surveyor's map, the deed, and a notebook to jot down anything I found. Tara's text from last night had promised more digging into the county records, but I couldn't sit still waiting for answers. The logging trail was calling, and I needed to know if it could really be my way out of this HOA stranglehold. Plus, that stone wall with SH 1948. Carved into it felt like a clue, a breadcrumb left by my great-grandfather that might lead to something bigger. The trail was just as unforgiving as yesterday, the brambles snagging at my jeans as I pushed deeper into the forest. The faint tire tracks I'd noticed before were still there, and as I followed them, I found more signs of use. Broken branches, flattened patches of earth, even an old rusted chain half buried in the dirt. It looked like someone had been out here, maybe years ago, but why? The trail ended at the county road, just as I'd hoped, but the stone wall in the clearing was what kept drawing my attention. I knelt beside it, tracing the carving with my fingers. Samuel Harper had built more than just a bridge. He'd left markers, boundaries, maybe even secrets. As I poked around the clearing, my boot hit something hard beneath the leaves. I brushed away the debris and found a metal box, rusted shut but heavy, about the size of a shoebox. My heart raced. I pried at the lid with my pocket knife, but it wouldn't budge. Whatever was inside would have to wait until I could get better tools. I tucked the box into my backpack, feeling its weight against my spine as I hiked back to the cabin. Was this Samuel's? Or something the developers had buried to keep hidden? Back at the cabin, I set the box on the kitchen table and stared at it, debating whether to force it open or wait for Tara's next update. My phone buzzed, breaking the silence. It was Carl. Ellie, heads up. Margaret's pushing for a vote to sue you over the bridge. Some residents are on your side, but she's got the board riled up. Can you meet me at my place tonight? Lydia and a few others want to talk strategy. I texted back, I'll be there. 7 p.m.? Then I called Tara. I found something, I said, describing the box and the trail. And Lydia mentioned old HOA files, developer contracts. Any luck with the county records? I'm close, Tara said, her voice buzzing with energy. There's a land transfer from the 1980s that looks shady. The developers bought up most of the surrounding plots. But your family's land was excluded. There's a reference to a disputed right-of-way. That was never resolved. I'm trying to track down the original contracts, but the county's archives are a mess. That box you found. Don't open it until I can verify what's legal to do with it. If it's tied to the developers, it could be evidence. I agreed, though the urge to crack the box open was strong. Instead, I spent the afternoon reinforcing the cabin's porch, the physical labor helping me think. The HOA's threat to sue was a bold move, but it meant they were scared. Margaret wasn't just protecting her precious roads. She was guarding something else. Lydia's hint about those files kept nagging at me. If I could get my hands on them, I might find the leverage I needed to end this standoff for good. At 7 p.m., I pulled up to Carl's house, a modern split level with solar panels and a neatly trimmed hedge. Inside, the mood was tense but hopeful. Lydia was there, along with 2 other residents. Priya, a young software engineer with a sharp wit, and Tom, a grizzled contractor who'd built half the homes in Willow Creek. They'd all had their own run-ins with Margaret's iron-fisted HOA rules, and my fight was starting to feel like theirs too. Ellie, we're with you, Lydia said, pouring me a cup of tea. Margaret's gone too far. Blocking your access is one thing, but threatening a lawsuit? That's desperation. She knows you're right about the bridge. Priya leaned forward, her laptop open. I did some digging online. The developers who built Willow Creek Estates were a company called Crestwood Holdings. They went bankrupt in the 90s, but there were rumors they cut corners, bribed officials, fudged land deals. If your family's right-of-way was ignored, it could unravel the whole neighborhood's legal foundation. Tom nodded, his weathered hands folded. I remember Crestwood. Shady bunch. They paved over old trails and streams without permits. Your bridge? It's probably the only thing they couldn't touch, legally speaking. If you got proof of a right-of-way, you could own half the roads in here. Carl handed me a folder. These are copies of HOA meeting minutes from when the neighborhood was built. Nothing concrete, but there's a mention of a disputed access point near your property. Margaret's predecessor tried to bury it. If we can find those developer contracts, we might prove the HOA has been overstepping for years. I thanked them, my mind racing. The metal box, the right-of-way, the contracts. It was all connected. But how? And who was driving that black SUV? As I drove back to the cabin, the forest seemed darker, the shadows thicker. I parked near the bridge and noticed fresh tire marks in the dirt. Not mine. Someone had been here, and recently. Inside, I locked the door and set the metal box on the table, its rusted surface glinting under the cabin's dim light. I wanted to open it, but Tara's warning held me back. Instead, I pulled out the surveyor's map and traced a logging trail, wondering what else Samuel Harper had left behind. My phone pinged with a new message from an unknown number. Leave the bridge alone, or you'll regret it. My stomach dropped. This wasn't just about access anymore. The anonymous text, leave the bridge alone or you'll regret it, stared back at me from my phone, its words glowing in the dim light of the cabin. My pulse raced, but I wasn't about to back down. The metal box sat on the kitchen table, its rusted lid taunting me with secrets I couldn't yet unlock. The fresh tire tracks by the bridge, the shady developer history, and now this threat. It was clear the HOA, or someone tied to it, was desperate to keep something hidden. I locked the door, double-checked the windows, and sat down with the surveyor's map, determined to piece together the next move. The next morning, I woke early, the forest alive with the chatter of birds and the distant rush of Willow Creek. I texted Tara about the threatening message in the metal box, urging her to hurry with the county records. I'm sending you a photo of the box. I wrote, and those developer contracts. Anything yet? Her reply came quickly. Got the photo. Don't touch the box until I confirm it's not evidence. Found a 1987 contract mentioning your land, but it's incomplete. I'm heading to the county office today. Stay safe. I couldn't sit still, so I grabbed my tools and headed back to the logging trail. Clearing it felt like defiance, a way to reclaim control while the HOA plotted their lawsuit. As I hacked through the brambles, I kept an eye out for more clues. The stone wall with SH 1948 carved into it loomed in the clearing, and I noticed something new. A faint outline in the dirt, like the foundation of an old structure. Had my great-grandfather built something else out here? A shed? A barn? The tire tracks I'd seen before were still there, but now I spotted a cigarette butt, fresh enough to suggest someone had been here recently. I bagged it in a Ziploc, feeling like a detective in a mystery I hadn't signed up for. Back at the cabin, I called Carl. I got a threatening text last night. I said, keeping my voice low, and there's fresh tire tracks by the bridge. Someone's watching me. Any chance you can get me into the HOA's records room? Lydia mentioned old files, developer contracts. I need to see them. Carl hesitated. That's risky, Ellie. Margaret keeps those files locked up tight. But I know where she stores the key. Meet me at the clubhouse tonight, after dark. Bring your ID and the deed just in case. That evening, under a moonless sky, I parked a block away from the clubhouse and walked through the shadows to meet Carl. He was waiting by the side entrance, a flashlight in hand. Lydia's keeping lookout, he whispered. We've got 10 minutes before the security guard does his rounds. We slipped inside, the clubhouse eerily quiet. Carl led me to a small office at the back, where a filing cabinet stood like a sentinel. He pulled a key from his pocket, his hands shaking slightly. I could lose my board seat for this, he muttered, but he unlocked the cabinet anyway. Inside were folders labeled by year, and we quickly found one marked Crestwood Holdings, 1987. My heart pounded as I flipped through it. There was a contract between Crestwood Holdings and the county, detailing the sale of land for Willow Creek Estates. But a handwritten note in the margin caught my eye. Harper property excluded due to unresolved right-of-way. Bridge ownership disputed. Recommend acquisition. Acquisition? I whispered. They tried to buy my family out, didn't they? Carl nodded. Your grandmother shut them down. But look at this. He pointed to a second document, a memo from Crestwood CEO to the HOA's first president. It mentioned securing the bridge access and avoiding legal challenges from the Harper estate. The memo ended with a chilling line, ensure the right-of-way remains buried. They knew, I said, my voice tight. They built this whole neighborhood, knowing my family owned the bridge and the right-of-way, and they covered it up. Before we could dig deeper, Lydia's voice hissed through Carl's walkie-talkie. Guards coming. Get out now. We shoved the files back, locked the cabinet, and slipped out the side door just as headlights swept the parking lot. My heart was racing, but I clutched a photocopy of the memo I'd managed to grab. Back at the cabin, I spread it out next to the surveyor's map and the metal box, my mind buzzing. The HOA's lawsuit threat was a bluff. They were terrified I'd expose their shaky legal foundation. The next day, Tara called with big news. Ellie, I found the full 1987 contract. Your family's right-of-way wasn't just for the bridge. It extends through the main road of Willow Creek Estates. The developers paved over it without permission, and the HOA has been collecting fees for a road they don't fully own. You could sue them for trespassing. I grinned, feeling the tide turning. What about the box? Still checking, but if it's on your property, it's yours to open. Just document everything. I grabbed a crowbar and carefully pried open the metal box. Inside was a leather-bound journal, its pages yellow but intact. The first entry was dated 1948, in my great-grandfather's handwriting. Built the bridge to connect the valley. The land is ours, always will be. If they come for it, let the truth be my shield. The journal detailed his battles with early developers, his refusal to sell, and a map sketching the right-of-way, identical to the one I'd found in the county records. Tucked between the pages was a letter from a lawyer, warning Samuel about unscrupulous parties eyeing his land. I was still processing this when my phone buzzed with another text from the unknown number. You're digging too deep. Stop now. My hand shook, but I forwarded it to Tara. Can you trace this number? I asked when she called back. Working on it, she said. But Ellie, this is getting serious. I'm coming out there tomorrow with a private investigator. Don't go anywhere alone. That night, I sat on the porch, the journal in my lap, the creek's murmur blending with the rustle of leaves. The HOA secrets were unraveling, but so was my sense of safety. The black SUV, the cigarette butt, the threatening text. Someone was watching, and they weren't just HOA busybodies. I glanced at the bridge, its silhouette barely visible in the dark. It wasn't just a way in or out anymore. It was a battleground. The next morning, as I waited for Tara, I heard a car engine, not the SUV, but a pickup truck pulling up to the bridge. It was Tom, the contractor from Carl's meeting, his face grim. "Ellie, we've got a problem," he said. "Margaret's got a surveyor coming today to challenge your deed." But I overheard something else. "Someone on the board's been talking to a private firm about buying your land. They're not playing fair." I clutched the journal, my resolve hardening. "Let them come," I said. "I've got the truth on my side.